So how in the world does one person holding a homemade sign manage to spark a global movement with millions of people? Today, we're going to unpack the incredible story of Fridays for Future, how one student's lonely protest for the climate literally became a worldwide phenomenon. And it all kicks off with a really simple but urgent message. And that one sentence, it really captures the entire spirit of this movement. It's not just some clever metaphor. It's a direct, urgent alarm bell. It frames climate change not as some far-off problem for another generation, but as a crisis that's happening right now, in the house we all share. So where did this fire even start? Well, it wasn't in some fancy boardroom or at a huge summit. Nope. It began on a quiet cobblestone street in Stockholm with just one very determined teenager. I mean, just picture it for a second. A 15-year-old sitting all by herself outside the Swedish parliament. She's decided to protest instead of being in class. Her sign, School Strike for Climate, which just means School Strike for Climate, was this simple but incredibly powerful act of defiance. It was personal, it was direct, and it was pretty much impossible to ignore. And it just took off. The speed of its growth was absolutely astonishing. If you look at this timeline, in August of 2018, it is literally just her. By September, you have students in other cities joining in. And by December, we're talking just 4 months later, she's not just a protester anymore. She's on a world stage, addressing leaders at a UN climate summit. That is just explosive growth. But this wasn't just some random viral trend. It was fueled by a set of really clear and powerful ideas. So what exactly is the mission that's uniting all these young people from all over the world? Okay, so the movement is really built on these 4 big pillars. It's not just about saving the polar bears, you know? Climate justice means recognizing that this crisis hurts poorer nations and vulnerable communities the most. Intergenerational responsibility is this core idea that adults today have a duty to the kids of tomorrow. Scientific integrity, well, that's simple. Listen to the experts. And youth empowerment is the fundamental belief that young people don't just deserve a voice, they deserve a seat at the table. And out of those core ideals, you get these very clear, very actionable demands. The crucial thing here is that they aren't just shouting into the wind. They have a specific list of what they want leaders to do, from hitting that Paris Agreement target of 1.5 degrees Celsius to making sure all policies line up with the latest science. So, with this clear mission locked in, Greta Thunberg's role started to evolve. She really became the main voice of the movement, taking her message from that simple cardboard sign all the way to the world's most powerful stages. And this might be her most famous moment. At the UN in 2019, she wasn't just up there presenting facts and figures. She was channeling the frustration and the feeling of betrayal for an entire generation. Those words, "How dare you?" they carried so much weight because it wasn't a polite request, it was an accusation. And she didn't just stop with the politicians. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, she literally looked the world's most powerful CEOs and financiers in the eye and called them out for putting profits above everything else. It just showed she was willing to confront power wherever it was, whether that's political or economic. And her voice echoed with unbelievable results. Inspired by what she did, millions of students in over 150 countries walked out of their schools for global climate strikes. One voice had truly become the voice of millions. So this massive mobilization, it brings up a really important question. I mean, getting millions of people on the streets is one thing, but what has the movement actually changed? And what kind of challenges is it facing? Well, the contributions are pretty significant. Fridays for Future basically dragged the climate conversation out of stuffy scientific journals and put it right onto family dinner tables. It influenced policy debates in places like the EU and the UN, and it created this powerful new cultural symbol of youth-led resistance.
But of course, not everyone has been a fan. While the movement sees itself as empowering young people, a really common criticism you hear is that it's all just childish idealism. The argument there is that young activists, because they're so passionate, can sometimes oversimplify the incredibly complex economic and political realities that leaders have to deal with. And there's an internal challenge too. Let's be honest, the world's attention span is short. A huge hurdle for Fridays for Future, really for any grassroots movement, is how do you keep the pressure on? How do you stay in the headlines when the news cycle inevitably moves on to the next big thing? So when you take everything into account, the triumphs, the challenges, what's the real legacy of Fridays for Future? What has it fundamentally changed for good? This right here is probably the key takeaway.
The movement's single greatest achievement might be that it successfully reframed the entire climate debate. It's no longer just about economics or technology. It's now seen as a question of morality, of what one generation owes to the next. And that big shift has led to these lasting impacts. It's built a durable, global network for young activists. It's made climate justice a term that politicians actually have to talk about. And it continues to be this constant source of pressure on governments and corporations all over the world to, well, do more. The story of Fridays for Future is just a powerful case study. It suggests the answer might be some mix of courage, a clear message, and the conviction that our house is, in fact, on fire. And it leaves all of us with a final question to think about. What does it really take for just one voice to change the world?